that case, we can start our conversation. We are going to kick off our second day workshop sessions with innovative idea generation. And today we have a guest, Mr. Sinan Sarioglu, who is a serial entrepreneur. One of his companies also joined by Combinator in the past. So I know him for a very long time. Not just his successful business career, also his innovative ideas help not just his businesses, also his friends' businesses. Sometimes we discuss ideas about A2SV. Sometimes our common friends, Burak and Mustafa, like they have a mobile app company, and we discuss ideas there. And Sinan abi, like you are great at this, and we would love to learn from you. So today's agenda is going to start with getting know more about your story. Yes, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Emre. I mean, briefly about my story is I'm a software engineer originally by trade since high school and by undergrad degree. And after the college, I have mostly spent my time with corporate environments and government projects. And eventually it turned out to be like a consulting industry, launched a small consulting company, which grew somewhere around 50 engineers at some point and then moved to North America in 2017 and started all over again, but this time mostly in the product domain rather than service industries. And that's where we basically started on startup journey and try to identify problems. So basically, when I first started out, it was a pretty generic thing, like, hey, I will find a problem and then I will find a solution for that problem, and then that will turn out to be a company sort of thing. Eventually, I ended up looking for different domains where I can reach out or basically I can do inspect. One of them is like a basic my life, like a consumer sort of problems and the solutions. The second thing is restaurants because I have been eating food and then eventually I have been getting in touch with lots of restaurants with that. So with that way, somehow we ended up with Cuboh with another friend of mine who is also looking to do something in the restaurant domain. We started with some idea, which was a blue collar marketplace, on demand marketplace for restaurants like waitresses and that sort of bussers and that sort of roles. Eventually, that idea didn't pick up or we couldn't get interaction with that. But while I tried to sell the idea to potential clients, eventually I found another problem which we could be solving that. And since this would be coming from more like domain, basically we found a bit of product market fit over there, and that company turned out to be Cuboh. And after that, basically, I switched mostly in healthcare industries in United States, especially because, as I said before, I'm a patient, a human, a normal person, which is going through a healthcare system here, which is pretty painful. Um, I basically joined two healthcare startups, mostly as a consultant or a software engineer or basically early stage product idea validation expert sort of capacities. And right now, I'm also working for an idea as a side project to basically set up a single point of uh, con- contact point and mobile application actually for to navigate the US healthcare system. Yeah, that's the story. It wasn't very brief though, but that is the story.
Abi, thank you very much. Like what you have achieved so far, I'm sure is the dream of many young people in Africa. And I hope when they get to our ages, they can exceed us. That's why we are here. We want to share our experience in a practical manner.
Exactly.
So, Abi, like one thing that I have noticed when you were telling your story, the problems that you choose to work on, they are from your life. So basically, you attacked problems that you are native on. So can you tell us more about the importance of problem solving?
Yeah. So
Sorry, like
basically,
problem selection. Yes.
yeah, exactly. This is something that I have been thinking a lot in the last 4 or 5 years. I believe there's two types of person coming from the different stages of life. So basically, I'm an immigrant. I came from Turkey here. I didn't have a too much established network from college or that sort of places or in industries. Because of that, basically, I happened to move with the problems that I'm experiencing myself. And I always assume that every entrepreneur is doing that. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is doing the Facebook because he needs to have the socialization at some point in basically Harvard or MIT environment. I taught that. Um, that is a one way of moving forward. So basically, you might intuitively basically get annoyed at something that is working or not working, and then try to solve that problem. Or you might uh, basically try to find a real problem in your environment or your observable space, whether you experience that problem or not, and then go with that. That's one thing. The second thing of person I see, which I couldn't do that, is basically people who are experts in switching from context to context and then eventually try to capture the problems over there and then turn from entrepreneur there. I see these sort of thing more like people who are coming from MBA backgrounds and then work with companies like McKinsey or basically similar consulting companies where they work with other clients, or basically they have this convention of somehow getting in touch with potential different industries and then eventually observe that. So that's two way of moving forward. But generally what I see that in the especially early age, like us, like I mean our friends today in the meeting, it always starts with basically your problems first, your observable networks problems, and then eventually online problems. So online problems is like there is Reddit out there where you can see people's pains or basically compliments about the existing products, or basically things they wish that an existing product or tool could have, sort of thing. I mean, these are signals, and there are different layers of things, sort of thing. So as it were, my even though it turned out to be success, my problem observation domain is pretty limited, like my network and myself. Where you can get out from there, see the observable universe of Twitter, Reddit, and other sort of places, and maybe you can get far out of that. You see, you can observable industry in real life, which is industries or government agencies or day-to-day life of other people. I mean, there are entrepreneurs over here in the United States which is working for homeless domain, like try to solve a social problem that they experiment with the bigger scale of the society that they live in. Yeah.
Abi, thank you very much. So, to summarize, like after you, let's say, migrated to United States, your observation space was not that large, and you started from your own problems, and the journey took you
Yeah.
to other stages. And you also mentioned that some entrepreneurs, they actually get exposure to other domains, but the key is making observations. I mean, there are some people who are not homeless, but solving homeless people problems, right? Gave that
Yeah.
example. That's very true. So my follow-up question before we get started into market analysis. So like when it comes to doing the observations, like would you do the observations on the problems, or would you first choose the general market and then try to observe a subsegment under? Like how would you?
Yeah, generally there is a bit of both of that in this domain. I mean, sometimes you get some signal from an industry itself, and then you basically need to say that hey, there's. I mean, healthcare is like that. I mean, for consumer healthcare in the United States, no company has ever turned out to be success so far. But still, lots of entrepreneurs are trying to solve the problems over there again and again right now. The reason is it is huge by numbers, and generally when look at out in any place like Reddit, like real people, everyone is complaining. So that is ambiguous, but a big industry, lots of compliments. Defining a problem and coming up with an exact solution is hard because not very basically definitive thing like, hey, okay, this is the problem itself, like very simple, and then this is the solution. Sort of is important because what it does is people are coming up uh, comp- problems like, hey, healthcare is really hard. So this is very generic definitions of problem. It's not problem. So you just want to say that okay, I need to basically divide this hard. The description of healthcare is hard, and then go through the smaller piece of what is going on over there, and then find the most important problem to solve with the solvable way. I mean, most important solvable problem here in this domain. That's one thing. The second thing is, I mean, sometimes you might have a very simple problem of a very big set of people. I mean, the problem seems pretty simple, but the user, or basically the potential user set, is so big that could turn out to be a really commercialized good idea at some point. That's the thing. And the third thing is the basic execution. I mean, okay, there's a problem. It's owned by a very niche. The niche is big enough. This may turn out to be a good beachhead market, but are we able to execute that? Or basically, what is the thing, sort of thing? So it's a bit of both. I mean, if there is a domain which you already feel like it's big and there's already lots of signals, like, I mean, there's already lots of things to solve here, you can go over that. But if you might see, for example, in the marketing technologies, you might see if you are coming out of marketing technologies domain, you will see lots of different brands like Mixpanel, similar like other analytic solutions, tons of analytic solutions. And I always wondered what is the difference between each of that, because every year there is some sort of an IPO about the marketing analytics technologies, and each of these companies are still like a unicorn, right? But what happens is at the end of the day, most of the companies have been founded by people who have some specific problems. For example, one founder just says that, okay, there are tons of data flowing somewhere, like let's say social media, say Google Analytics, or basically users' behavior in the website, but there is no unified solution. So this turned out to be some company, or there is another company who is just trying to basically understand the consumers' funnel behavior and then working on that sort of things. So very big, very ambiguous, but every different company basically picked up different part of a problem and then go with that. I think basically what says that a domain which seems like there's already existing tools could be still having enough opportunity to work on. And I mean, in the basically next in upcoming minutes, we will be talking about generative AI also, and this would basically have some differentiation from the previous solution or problem identification process, because generative AI has its own dynamics on the how to come up with ideas and how to validate and how to roll out.
That's very true. Like, it's not the same world anymore. Generative AI is disturbing everything, including idea generation. That's very true. Abi, our first exercise is going to be about listing major markets and industries in our local countries. So right now we have some members who are part of this Google Meet event, and we also have some hackathon participants who are watching us on YouTube. So the event is also broadcasted. And like, before we get started with this task, like, we are going to dedicate 15 minutes for it. Given that generative AI is available, like, we can use ChatGPT, we can use Bard. How would you do this first step of market exploration?
That's a very, very high level questions. So I first of all, one thing that we need to start out first is especially in generative AI domain, before exploring any market. Normally, there is this principle in startup world where never basically try to find a problem for an existing solution or tool that you defined, sort of thing. I mean, you might have a blockchain. This is what happened in Web3, and then people try to find problems, which is not important actually, but a Web3 could solve, and then try to push for that. But in generative AI domain, somehow things are moving just directly opposite of that. And most of the time, what happens is entrepreneurs or people are looking to enhance the existing tools with generative AI or AI tools. So basically, what entrepreneurs are doing that, okay, there's already a tool for some industry, some solution, some problem, but could I make this tool better with using generative AI? I mean, there is already a copywriting support tools in place, but then when foundation models rolled out, the copy AI, the Jasper AI sort of companies basically double their capacities or double their functionalities, these sort of things. So one thing that we could look at it at the first place is, okay, what is the one thing that I'm using or you seeing in my life as a tool already, and then how I can make it better, or can I make it better with using an AI in the same functionality? Sometimes you can change the way the interaction. I mean, some tool could be initially interacted with like a forms, a very specific process, and then that tool may end up in the next iteration to be an interacted with a conversational engine like ChatGPT, OpenAI, or sometimes you need to enhance the process with using some generated things like a creativity where you can use the model. So the first thing is basically existing tools and problems to improve with AI. And then in the second end, you can start to look around again the problems you observe in your day-to-day life, or basically problems in your observable people's day-to-day life. And the third thing is basically industries. And most of the time in the industries, when you look at it, you start again from the industries where you are a customer of or client of, and then go from that sort of thing.
I see. So, like with the given new tools, there are new things that we can do, and it really depends what area that we are focusing on. All right. So, team, like our first exercise is about to start. So I'm going to write the task in the chat window. So we are going to list largest markets and industries in your country. And for each industry, please report its yearly size since 2019. So what are industries? I mean, industries are high-level categories like agriculture, e-payments, renewable energy, education. So there is no wrong answer in this. And in the next 15 minutes, what we want to do is we want to use available resources to us to see how we are going to find it. Like which industries are the largest ones in our local countries. So first, we are going to take 5 minutes of a break. And after that, in the next 10 minutes, we are also going to do this interactively here in the session. So people in the meet room, do you have a question or is the task clear? Okay, I think the task is clear. All right, team. So we had a little over 5 minutes, and we can get started. And we can start looking at the results as well as hear how we did the search. So who wants to kick us off? Do we have any volunteers?
Is it on how we found the data, or the data that we found?
Yes, Biruk. Like first off, what kind of process did you follow? And after that, if you also share your screen and show us your results, I think it would be really nice.
Sure. For me, I used Bing AI, the one that you get with Sage. The reason I used that one to collect the data is it's
Biruk,
currently
could you please share your screen?
Oh, okay. Give me a second.
Because Tim, like in the past, doing such kind of a market research, it was very difficult. Like you have to go through some reports, you have to visit many different websites, because we didn't have something like generative AI, which can easily summarize such kind of information to us. Yes. Yes, Birk. Why did you use Bing AI?
Yeah, the reason was like you have a lot of tools to do this, but Bing AI, like it has the capability to browse the web as of now. So I wanted the latest data, and at the same time, it uses a GPT-4 engine, if I'm not corrected. So that's like a good engine to use, and also you can tune it. Like, when you create a topic, you can tune the temperature to be more precise or more creative. So for a data report, for such kind of scenarios, it's like very nice to use, you know. So I just went here, I tuned it to be more precise, and I asked it the question that you pasted in the chatbot, and I just asked it some follow-up question, and by the end, I asked the credibility of the data, to which it backed up that it got the resources from credible websites. So that's why I generated using Bing AI. So it's a really neat tool to use in such scenarios. And this is the data that I found.
Mm-hmm. So my follow-up question, when you look at this picture, so which industries you find high potential to enter and why? Like when you look at this data.
For Ethiopia, like agriculture takes the trophy here, I guess. Like 80% of the population is employed under agriculture. That's a huge market potential there. And like the runner-ups with manufacturing and construction, and then tourism follows. But as you can clearly see, even with the GDP input that it's putting into the economy, agriculture is the largest by far. So if I were to choose a market, I would choose agriculture for Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Biruk. And Sinan abi, so what do you think about this analysis? And when you look at this data, Biruk, could you please keep your screen up?
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, having an agriculture is a very big industry in the domain. It makes a couple of things. One of them is basically you can find how that industry has been structured. I mean, is it like a small number of big players or a big number of small players? That's one thing. I mean, small number of big farming companies, or lots of small farmers. In that case, I mean, basically, what sort of opportunities or problems could we be seeking in this structure? I mean, that will define your maybe next step. But overall, it's good.
Thank you very much, Biruk. Thank you very much, Sinan abi. And let's see, who wants to go next? Do we have another volunteer team? Thank you, Biruk. So before we move on to next exercise, it would be nice to evaluate one more result, team. So do we have any volunteers? All right, I think Seganesh. Would you like to share your screen and tell us about how you did your research? Seganesh, do you hear me?
Yeah, I'm right.
Hi,
For
how are
my
you?
research, like,
Yes, please go ahead.
okay, how are you? Okay, like
Doing
Brooke
well,
said,
thank you.
I've got on the top agriculture, but since the first one is agriculture, I suggest having a coffee exports from Ethiopia. I think it's more than 25% of export, exchanges are within coffee marketing. That's a good area.
Mm-hmm. And like, do you mind sharing your screen and showing us your research and your findings so that Mr. Sinan can comment on it?
Okay, I will be sharing. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Here I have asked for ChatGPT. That's which markets in Ethiopia is more like since 2019, and I have got agriculture here, and also manufacturing, services, and construction. Coffee exports are there, and Brooke suggested to like for the real data taking Bing is more effective. So for Bing, I have asked the same question, and it gives me a data that's more precise than ChatGPT, and I have used that too. For the coffee export, 25% of the total export earning in 2020 was coffee. That's why I was suggesting for the coffee export.
Mm-hmm. So, well, like, you basically go into the next level. So you realize that agriculture is the largest one, and you wanted to see the distribution, and you realize that coffee is the largest in
Yes.
agriculture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So actually, this is connecting us to the next step. So Sinan abi, like, let's say after we decided our general big market. So, like, what is the next step? How do we refine it further?
Yeah, so basically we will be seeking problems of different personas, right? Persona is basically a generalized definition of a people who have the problem, and then we will be tailoring solution for them, right? So basically, in this segment, we should be trying to meet with people, or basically trying to find a data which is sourced from people, based on people about their problems. I mean, in Google or in basically Bing search, Bing AI, we could basically ask about what are the problems of these coffee farmers or coffee distributors, or basically companies who is organizing overall the logistics or sales or import export or supply demand chain of these overall coffee business here, sort of thing. And then eventually the data we collected from them will be based on will help us shape about what sort of persona and what sort of problems we could be trying to solve, or what sort of potential solutions we could come up.
Mhm. So basically, after we choose our subdomain, ideally, we need to have conversations with the stakeholders to really understand what are their pain points, right? And at this level, what we can do is, I mean, at least without going on the field and collecting this real data, we can still try to have similar conversations with generative AI to see what kind of problems can potentially be there. So next, like let's choose our main domain, and then let's choose our subdomain. Like in this case, let's say it was coffee. And we will go into problems. So which problems are there? And like we can also try to come up with whether the solution is going to be feasible for us to produce or not. So in our next task, after choosing a subdomain, look for potential problems, potential pain points. This can be done by having conversations with stakeholders. But for now, what we are going to use is we are going to use generative AI to learn more about problems in the sub-industry. So not everybody has to do this in coffee, guys, by the way. Like you don't have to choose agriculture. You don't have to choose coffee under agriculture. So you can choose another subdomain if you want. And after you choose your subdomain, we want you to explore different pain points in that subdomain. So in the next 5 minutes, we are going to explore these problems in our selected subdomain. Thank you. Is the task clear, team, by the way? Thank you.
Sorry, Emre, I have a question. By pain points, do you mean problems that are in the country? Or
That are in the
not
selected particular, yes, like a particular industry. I mean, we are always working in the country domain. Like in this given example, we were in Ethiopia, right? We are not looking for the global problems. We are looking for the local problems.
Okay.
So like if you happen to choose the coffee business, what are the problems with coffee business in Ethiopia? All right, team. So let's continue with volunteers again. So who wants to bring the solution this time to the table and get feedback? All right, let's get started with you, Edisur. Could you please share your screen?
Sure.
And tell us the process that you have gone through.
Sure. Can you see my screen clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mine domain was a bit different than coffee and agriculture. It was about construction because I thought there are a lot of constructions, buildings, a lot of stuff related to construction are undergoing in Ethiopia. So I was not able to use Bing since I do not have Microsoft Edge. So I used an alternative AI that is called Bard by Google. So I went out to ask him the problems, like in the previous questions. He listed me some of the largest markets industry in Ethiopia. I went out to choose construction, and I asked him the potential pain points in construction in the construction field in Ethiopia. He listed me some of them, which most of them look convincing: lack of skilled labor, high cost of materials, poor infrastructure, corruption, and unstable political environments, which is very true. I didn't ask him, but he have also provided me with ways to address this challenge, to invest in training programs, reduce the cost of material, improve the infrastructures, combat corruption, and promote political stability. This was a bit enough, so I went a bit further and I asked him which stakeholders should I talk to or have a conversation with to solve these problems. So he also listed me how many, 6 of them, which most of them look pretty convincing about the government, the companies, labor unions, and others, the engineers, community members, and stuff. Yeah, these were the things that I've got. I have also asked him to support the given data with statistics because I believe statistics numbers don't lie. So he have also provided me with some statistics from year 2020, 2021, how lack of skilled labor or cost of material have affected the countries and stuff. Yeah, so I was asking him to give me the data that is aggregated from 2019 to 2023. Okay, let me ask him. So the good thing about Bard is it can explore the internet. Unlike ChatGPT, it was not cut off in 2019. It can explore the internet and it's also fast. He has given me I have some aggregated data that's challenging. Yeah, so he can also give me data in a table format like this. Yeah, this is the path I went through to get the data.
Well, thanks for sharing, Edisur. And like as a result, like what is the problem that is identified? Like that you are convinced that that problem should be targeted.
I'm sorry?
Like, did you come to one problem eventually?
Yeah, definitely. As I have said, most of them are actually true, but the ones that convinced me is about lack of skilled labor. Like he mentioned the word skilled. Like we have a lot of manpower in Ethiopia, but the problem is like education and stuff. Like the people might not be skilled. How we would work is like in some constructions or stuffs, we might lack skilled labor. So this one actually convinced me. In addition to that, corruption is also a problem in Ethiopia. This is not only a problem in the construction and on construction field, like on the others, it's also a corruption, like worldwide. I mean, a national-wide problem. these two convinced me a lot. The others actually do convince me, but not as much as these two did.
Got you. Thank you. And Sinan abi, in this type of research methodology, what advantages do you see, and what things that we should be careful with?
I think this is pretty clear on the segmentation of potential problems and each of these stakeholders related with the problems. Some of these things still we are in a high level here, and probably as the next step we would be going through lower level by using these information here. I mean, for example, talent generation. I mean, lack of talent demand and supply thing is a real problem here, which is really observable. So basically, at this point, we need to understand two sides of the table, like why there's not enough talent, why there's not enough trainer, and is there enough basically demand for the talent. Basically, we need to check out the demand side, because if we put a solution to the table, this will be probably be used or be touched by three different stakeholders here: the trainers, the talent, probably the people who will get this training and then get the skills that will be working in this industry, and also the employers, potential employer itself. So we now know three different persona where we are basically solution could touch. Now we need to be basically getting in touch with these stakeholders.
Yes, to understand the problem, we need to talk to problem owners. Very true. So team, do we have one more volunteer to share their research with us? Yes, Sefine. Could you please share your screen and tell us about your research?
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So I choose the tourism. Just I give the hint for the ChatGPT because I already asked the largest size industries. So let us choose tourism, and ask what are the challenging problems in Ethiopia based on tourism industry. And I get some problems here: infrastructure and accessibility, and market and promotion, and so on. But I asked that which one is the most challenging among the above, right? Because there are more challenges here. Then I guess the perception safety, which means there are different tourists that come to Ethiopia, but they might not get this safety perception. They might get some problems for their destination. Then what then I ask is what makes tourists come to Ethiopia? We might get large number of tourists or not. By asking that, I guess like there are historical and cultural sites. So this means that there are a lot of tourists that will come to Ethiopia also in the next hopefully. Then unique architecture and religious and also spiritual tourism, cultural diversity, and natural landscape. And there are more, and hopefully this will help.
Sefine, could you please continue sharing your screen?
Right.
And just to be clear, like based on your research, which problem you think has the potential that you want to work on?
The perception safety based on tourism, right? Which means that there are different tourists that will come to Ethiopia, but they will not get a safety perception in Ethiopia, right?
That's very true, especially given that there are different, let's say, political instability situations in different regions from time to time. This is probably going to be one of the largest issues, right?
Yes.
Like from the tourist perspective, because safety is very important. because you are in a country that's not your home country. You don't have many people that you know around. Therefore, people would care about safety. Yes, Sinan abi, any comments you want to have on Safine research?
This is also very high level. I mean, and also perception of safety and safety itself is basically the thing that we need to understand in the context. Eventually, so basically, there is a need here again, a problem, right? I mean, it should be safe and also basically perceived safer. What could be done for basically solutions of this thing? I mean, it might be increasing. For example, in Turkey, I don't know if you remember, there is these mobile networks where having more cameras makes somehow people safe in the public environments and that sort of stuff. Just for an idealization, but I assume that you have an idea like that, or basically you have it. So in that case, the stakeholders here are like public authorities, probably government, people who are doing commerce related with the tourism, like hotels, other sort of like big employees and that sort of stuff, where you need to be getting in touch and having some conversations, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Safina. It was good work.
All right, team. So, like in the next step, we are going to do a root cause analysis. So after we choose a problem, the problem usually is a general one. And what we need to do is, like we need to find the root cause. Because if we treat the symptoms, we are not going to be treating the disease. That's why it is important to get to the root cause. And like there is a simple technique to dig deeper to understand the main root cause of problems, which is called 5 whys. So like any technique, this also has some downsides. At the same time, it is easy to apply, and most of the time, this gives you either the root cause or it gets you very close. So this 5 number, we shouldn't take it as a written rule. Sometimes you may have to dig deeper. Sometimes you may get to the root cause after a few why questions. But the idea is, after you have an answer, asking why, to dig deeper, to see what is causing that thing, and eventually you get to a point where that is the main thing. So Sinan abi, do you sometimes use this 5 whys technique or a similar technique to understand the root cause? So before we go into the activity, anything you want to share with our participants?
Yeah, generally what happens is, as I said before, you need to understand always different aspect of the problem and the perception. And this generally involves a couple of things. I mean, 5 why is pretty important, and also getting the data from more than one different sources to look at the issue from different angles. Yeah, that's where.
Mm-hmm. And team, in our next exercise, in the next 5 minutes, what we are going to do is, for the problems that we have selected, we will ask why. And by digging deeper, we will try to get to the root cause. Is the problem clear? Or I should say, is the task clear? All right, thank you, team. All right, it's time to get our next volunteer. So who wants to share his journey in finding the root cause? Yes, Elisur.
Thank you, Emre. Let me share my screen. Okay. So this was where we stopped previously. I was asking part about construction problems. So I chose one problem about lack of skilled labor. So I asked him, so what do you think is the root cause for lack of skilled labor? So he gave me a couple of reasons. He mentioned something about issues with multiple contributing complex issues. He said complex issues. So I tried to expand these complex issues into simpler ones. Give me a couple of them, 5 of them. Rapid growth of industry, lack of training programs, migration of skilled workers, inadequate education system in traditional gender roles. So I was interested about lack of training programs. So I tried to went deep. So I'm interested in the fact that there is a lack of training programs. So can you tell me more about it? So he told me why there are not much lack of training programs. These were because of lack of funding, lack of qualified trainers, lack of interest from students as well. I was also interested in this part, inadequate education system. I didn't ask it, so let me ask you, can you tell me more about education system here? Yeah. So he gave me 5 reasons. Some of them are similar to lack of effective training, like lack of funding and qualified teachers. So I believe if we went deep dive into these problems and root cause of these problems, I think it would be very easy for us to solve the problem.
Thank you, Elisur. So, like one question I have for you is, like when you look at the contributing factors, like given that, let's say you are a software engineering student, is this a domain that you would love to continue? Like, how do you feel? Like the required resources and the skills you have. Do you think there is a good match for this problem, or do you feel like this is a bit of a difficult one?
So frankly speaking, I have not dived deep into the construction thing, But one thing I know is that there's a problem, like it mentioned here about technology, rapid growth of the industry. Like this is one factor. So what this means is like the construction field is deeply interpolated with software engineering. Like not in this time, not anybody just builds a construction, a building just randomly. They depend heavily on softwares. They heavily depend on other technologies. So one thing I believe is that if I am interested and if I want to help in that industry, I believe that I have the potential, and I know that that field has a deep relationship with software engineering. So I believe it's not that much complex. We just need to give it our time and energy to invest more in this. That's my side.
And Sinan abi, what do you think? Like, what would you advise to Elesur?
I think this is great. Approaching it like, okay, where I can basically leverage my skills and then at the end of the day build tools to accelerate the basically solving this problem could be a good approach as well. I would explore that. I mean, one thing is basically there are models in other countries about the similar things like upskilling people. Like, I mean, there are Lambda School, which is mostly working on another domain, software development. But the thing is, they are trying to leverage the scalability of a software and basically mass large scale, basically education by using these LMS systems. So, yeah, this is all good. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Azur.
Thank you.
All right, team. Do we have another volunteer who wants to share their root cause search journey with us? Yes, Estefanos. Could you please share
Okay,
your
can you hear me?
Thank you.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello. Okay. So I was going over like the coffee problem and the coffee exports in production, and like I was trying, like I asked ChatGPT to list the main hurdles for coffee production, and I think I was interested on the inconsistent quality and supply chain efficiency. So when I tried to research on the root causes for the inconsistent quality and like the supply chain efficiency, what I found is like for the inconsistent quality part, like basically the problem is like the problem with soil, like soil may not be as good as or as fertile as throughout the year, all throughout all the places where coffees are being produced. And also like there's also problem with fertilizers. There isn't as much as fertilizers as farmers need like currently. And the other part is limited training and knowledge, which basically means farmers in Ethiopia still use traditional practices to grow coffees, and like maybe those practices could have benefit in in developing some kind of special flavored coffee, but there can be some areas in which there can be improvements. And the other one is like the processing methods, or you can say like how they grow and like present the coffees into into the market. And I think there are also a gap there where most of the time it's based on practice that is being passed, and there is no any systematic ways, and that could result in different quality. So like that is for the inconsistent quality part. And for the supply chain efficiency, it's basically there is no one main route in which the coffees are being being produced, and there is no like a main pipeline in which like the coffee gets produced and being passed to exporters. And the other reason or root cause is for poor roads and like lack of reliable transportation. And I guess like this is it.
Cool.
So, yes, Sinan, please.
So when I just say fragmented supply chain, I mean, since we are software engineers and generally thinking about from the information management point of view, generally when you have the supply chain and when it's very fragmented, most of the time there's an opportunity for systems or products basically who is orchestrating supply chain and basically managing these sort of things. I mean, this is just an idea that I could think of after your presentation, but overall it's good. Thank you very much.
All right. So, team, in that case, now that we have a problem and we know in which domain we are operating and who the stakeholders are, the next step is going to be preparing a questionnaire for our main stakeholders. So let's choose one for this exercise. Like after our problem, now our task is to choose the main stakeholder and prepare a questionnaire. Questionnaire meaning a list of questions that we can have a conversation with the stakeholder to understand the problem better. So is the task clear to you? Thank you. So let's take next 5 minutes to prepare and improve our questionnaires, and then we will get back here. All right, team. Do we have any volunteers to share their questionnaire to get a feedback? Yes, Ganesh.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, for the questionnaires, I have asked to generate those questionnaires for the farmers, coffee farmers, and it suggested me some questionnaires. Since I can't significantly know what is the root problem on the side of the farmers, it suggested me to ask the quality of their inputs, since if it is the problem on the coffee side, on the side of coffee farmers. The second question is a financial question. Is it adequate for your financial stability or not? And the third one is weather-related challenges on their side. So if it significantly impacts their coffee product, it suggested me to ask them this question. And also on market access and fair pricing for their coffee produce are consistent and satisfactory for them. They will be answering this question too. And also, as Stefano said, there is a lack of training and knowledge resource limits. And if that's the case, we have to ask them in order to clearly identify those problems are real or not on their side. For the other questions, this also mentioned previously, infrastructure like transportation, processing facilities are challenged or not. We have to ask them, we have to ask actual stakeholders whether this is a real problem or not. And the last question that's on this is, it's kind of when we export the farming, like the products, are there effects on like the policies and some other effects of them? This is the question that has to be asked for coffee farmers in order to see their pain points are included. Is this?
Sorry, Ganesh, you are breaking up on my end. Other people, can you hear Ganesh clearly? Is it on my end or her end? Okay. All right, so Sega, can you hear us? Right, looks like she's having a connection trouble. So we can get back to her later on. Do we have any other volunteer team? All right, Elisur, please go ahead. You are muted, yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. To continue from where we left off, I asked Bart to create a questionnaire for. First of all, I asked the stakeholders for this problem, lack of skilled labor. He mentioned some of them, including government officials, teachers, and parents. And it has also provided me with some organizations in Ethiopia, like government organizations, that might be that are potential stakeholders. So I was interested a bit in the Ethiopian Ministry of Education. So I told him that I want to prepare a questionnaire for Ethiopian Ministry of Education. So first of all, it told me what things to include in the questionnaire, and it gave me, I think, 5 sample questions. I think the questions are seen here. Like it asks, what are the main causes of the lack of skilled labor in education sector? What are the short-term and long-term solutions? Like it gave me 5 of them. So I wanted a bit clearer questionnaire. So I asked him to give me 10 questionnaire. So he gave me 10 of them. So these questions, I believe these 10 questions will give. I'm really sorry. So I believe these 10 questions will give a brief explanation about the problem and gives a bit of how the Ethiopian Ministry of Education understands the problem. Okay, so I wanted to ask Bart a bit interesting question. I was curious if he knows the current Minister of Ethiopian Minister of Education. Unfortunately, he didn't know. I was expecting him to say Brano Naka, but it didn't happen. So I wanted also to modify the questionnaire. So I wanted it to include multiple choice questions and true false questions. So it gave me multiple of them. Most of them are relevant. And I think they would give us a brief information how Ethiopian education minister understands the problem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Edesur. Like at this point, actually, I would like to introduce something to the team. So we can also use generative AI to evaluate such kind of questionnaires or any kind of document. Like when I get something, let's say I'm preparing a document, like I usually write the outline or start version, and then I give it to ChatGPT. And after that, like I work on it, and then I get it graded. So this is something we can do here, Edesur. Could you please ask Bart to grade and evaluate the questionnaire by different metrics? So let's see which metrics it's going to choose and how it is going to grade itself.
So can you tell me metrics to evaluate
the quality of this questionnaire, you can say. It's not just capable of producing the output, it is also capable of evaluating it.
Okay, so the first one would be reliability, validity, relevance. Like, can I ask it to give me in numbers? Like,
of course, please do. It makes it easier, and you can ask it to even like evaluate each question and give a grade for each question based on selected metrics. You can choose a subset of it. Maybe reliability, relevancy, clarity. Let's say we choose these 3.
Can you use numbers?
Like, can you grade? You can be more descriptive. Maybe you can say, can you grade each question out of 10? Reliability, validity, and clarity, let's say. Clarity. Please explain why. Please explain your grading as well. Yes, and explain your grading. Yeah. Like this works well with ChatGPT. I see no reason why it won't work with Bart. So let's give it a try.
I think ChatGPT listens to what you told him to do. There's a problem with Bart. Like it gives. Okay, let's see.
No, I don't think it understood well. Okay, it gave how it is going to. So now you can ask it to grade the questions, I believe.
Can you please read the questions with
Grade each question. Maybe when you say the question, it may be confusing.
the okay.
Yes, each question in the questionnaire, you can say. Each question. In the questionnaire. And we can delete with yes.
Based on your narrative in clarity.
Mm-hmm.
If it were ChatGPT, it would have done it.
It still doesn't understand.
Didn't understand. Yeah. But the main couldn't work.
Oh, maybe it did. It actually did, right? Nice.
Yeah, in the second part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it correctly. The long-term solutions.
Like basically this way, like to speed up the process, you can get rid of some of the questions which you don't think they are going to add much. And like with a few iterations, you can improve the quality of your questionnaire. Like you can ask questions like, hey, is there any area that we didn't touch with these questions? Like it can tell you if there are some, let's say, sub problems that are not covered by these questionnaires. So instead of taking the output of generative AI as source of truth, what I would recommend is seeing this as a start point. Like you can collaborate, you can work on it. It's a work in progress. So you do back and forth, you have a conversation, and eventually the quality gets better and better. So I think like one of the biggest mental switches that we need to do is generative AI is not one-shot solution. Like we will ask a question and then it will give us the answer. No, it doesn't work like that. And it's more of a process. You know, you have a conversation, you do back and forth to improve the quality more. And at some point, it reaches to level where you're happy with the quality. So I highly recommend all of us to model it this way, rather than thinking of it as I will give the question, it will give me the answer, we are done. No, like it's just the start point. Like let's say you are writing a very important email. Like you will probably read it multiple times, right? You will have multiple passes over it, like to make it close to perfect. And it's a similar situation here. So we should see this as a continuous process, and it requires back and forth. And this way, we can actually improve the results that we get. Thank you very much, Elisur and team. We are about to finish our last exercise, and in the next 5 to 10 minutes, it would be great to get your questions while we have Sinan abi here. This is a very good opportunity for you to ask any questions you may have regarding innovative idea generation or his entrepreneurial experience. So Sinan abi, I would like to kick off. So if, let's say you were one of our participants for the hackathon, like which problem domain looks exciting to you? What kind of an idea would you try?
I think one thing that I would, I mean, that gets my attention is the training, upskilling. It would be like because it's a very viable population, good industries that could be real benefit from that. That's one thing. The second thing is especially agriculture related supply and demand is something that could be like approachable thing from my first impressions. somehow we didn't have too much like a consumer product sort of thing. I mean, in the last couple of years, especially Africa as a continent, have been getting sort of a payment systems explosion, like lots of payment processing, payment systems getting it. Banking and digitization of the banking is pretty trendy over there. But yeah, today we didn't have any idea about that. Yeah, these are basically the
These are the
observations.
areas that you would be looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you. Team, do we have any other questions? Estefanos?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have 3 questions. The first one is like on the project ideas, like can we assume that like the project may require like expensive devices like to implement the idea? Because especially in Africa, if you're trying to like use AI, it could be generative or other AIs, like and if you want to produce consumer apps, like like most of the population don't have those kind of devices, and like I think that would be even hurdle like to come up with a solution like that can like cover most of the population. And like the second question kind of relates to that. And
Estefanos, we can go one by one.
okay,
I don't exactly get that, but what I understand that the smartphone network in the Africa or basically Ethiopia could be not strong enough in the consumers to have AI applications on the devices. Is it the question?
yeah, especially on the on the areas that we discussed today, I don't
Okay.
think the vast part of the population have those kind of devices to leverage any solutions, you know.
I don't think so. So basically, I mean, there is two part of that. Most of the AI solutions or AI-based solutions that we are seeing right now works with client and server architecture. So at the end of the day, what you are working is a normal mobile application which is connected to some server, and then eventually doing the heavy lifting in the server part of that. And that's a really good part of doing a software startup, because what happens is you don't need to have like a too much investment or too heavy machinery and that sort of stuff to just roll out or basically get your product in front of any client to use that. I don't think that would be an obstacle to come up with an idea and then basically ship the idea as a prototype or as a production grade software. So yeah, that's what I think.
I
Okay,
think
so
Estefanos' question, Estefanos, please correct me if I'm wrong. Like you were also mentioning that not everybody has access to technology in the country, right? Especially if we consider agriculture, for example. Like
yeah,
majority of the farmers may not have smartphones. So
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, basically, that's also another challenge that you should be. Or one of the thing is basic trend observing. Some of the solutions of some problems would be eventually enabled by growing technologies. I mean, right now, okay, the farmers might not have smartphones, but they are having like text messaging systems, right? When we first roll out my product, Cuboh, basically the product who is working with restaurants, the restaurants owners, small mom and pop shops have been using that. And the first iteration, even though it was an Android application, we made another lightweight version which is connecting through the SMS. And when there's a new order, basically it was pinging via SMS and going through that. And the second thing is when you roll out a solution, yes, I mean, basically having a client application in the farmer is just one part of that. But at the end of the day, especially in a fragmented industries like supply chains, the biggest part of your solution is the orchestration system, which is working on your basically servers, collecting all the data, processing the data, and then eventually coming up with solution of the data. So having not enough smartphones in the farmers could be an obstacle, yes, but still there's possibilities based on the capabilities of their current technology. infrastructure. I mean, as I said before, SMS is one part. If you don't have SMS, you can still communicate with these people somewhere, right? I mean, mail or other sort of thing. At the end of the day, you iterate, and by the time when your solution turned out to be really important, you might basically be a cause of people to getting it up with these phones or these smartphones as well. Hopefully.
Thank you, Abi. Estefanos, your second question, please.
Okay, so my second question is like, I think it's just a general question, like for especially for this hackathon, are we limited to like generative AI? Because I think especially with generative AI, like most of the outputs are either suggestions, like advices, or in terms of that. And I think like there are different types of AI can solve like major problems, and can we make like the products or the projects that we're innovating somewhat like AI powered application to some extent, or should they just focus solely on generative AI?
So since
Yeah, go on.
Since this is about the hackathon, I think I can take this one. Estefanos, correct me if I'm wrong. This is about the hackathon, right? You're asking about the scope of the projects, whether they have to be solely about generative AI. Well, no, like they have to touch generative AI. Like you should apply generative AI in some part of your solution. At the same time, your full solution can contain other components. It doesn't have to be solely based on generative AI. Like it can be a larger solution if the problem is requiring different pieces, right? So generative AI just should be one of the pieces at least. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks. So like for the last question, like for the idea or for the project idea, should it be like a consumer product, or can we also consider enterprise applications?
Definitely.
Yeah, most of the applications we have discussed today, basic domains we have discussed are mostly either enterprise or basically some sort of a B2B sort of capacity so far. So yeah, I mean, this is basically hackathon related question, but yeah, I think it should be.
But you're right, Abi. I mean, we don't have such kind of restriction. So like the only thing that we are asking for is having generative AI application in some part of your solution. Because like it doesn't have to solve it by itself, right? By using it, maybe we can do 50% of the problem, or 20%, or 80%. It really depends on which problem we are talking about. And you will probably be building like different components to make it a complete solution.
Okay, that's all for my question. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Estefanos. Are there any other questions?
I think Samir had posted a question in the chat. What opportunities do you see in the tech industry of Africa that you don't feel like exist in the Western world? I don't know, because I'm in Western world right now, but what I see that there is two things here. One of them is, I mean, I'm coming from Turkey, and in Turkey there are products which works in Turkey but doesn't work in here. I mean, it's in delivery industry or communication or basically banking, especially. Banking in Turkey was far, I believe, superior to the banking in here in North America. So that's basically a model. The thing is, when you have, I mean, there's two approach which I see in the entrepreneurs in Eastern part of the world, in Turkey especially. One thing is, hey, there's an idea who worked in America or basically another Western country, let's basically try it on our country sort of thing, which is good. I don't say it's bad. And the other thing is basically not basically having that part of that, and then just approaching the real life, real conventions and real lifestyle of the country you live in, and then trying to identify problems using the basically 5 Ys or 5 Ws that we have explained, and then eventually doing things on really tailored for that geography. I think problems are different, so solutions would be also different at some capacity. So yeah.
Thank you, Abi. And Samir, like I can try to answer this question as a person like who spent some time in Africa as well as in Silicon Valley, let's say. So like what opportunities? Well, like I would start from upskilling because like there are so many people who are hardworking. You know, Ethiopian people. I mean, yeah, sometimes we may feel lazy from time to time, but at the same time, like pretty hardworking nation. People wake up early. People work hard. Like in many businesses, Saturday is also business day. So like people dedicate a lot of time to what they do. At the same time, do they use the best tools? Do they use the best practices? I highly doubt. So what is the outcome of this? So your overall efficiency drops down because it's like you multiply hard work with the smart work. So like in Ethiopia, I see a lot of hard work, but I see little smart work. I'll give you an example. Like in Ethiopia, there's a ride-hailing company called Ride. It's like Uber in the developed world. And Ride drivers give you a phone call to understand where you are. Like they can easily see it on their app. They don't have to bother customer to understand where the customer is. But drivers, they refuse to use the technology. So they call, they try to understand where you are by the phone. And likewise, when they are taking you to your destination, instead of using Google Maps to find which route is the best, fastest, they rely on their mental map. And the mental map lacks the real-time traffic information. So, like, this is just an example how the system can still run, but in a more inefficient manner. Like, I see the biggest room for improvement in Africa for creating awareness around, like, upskilling ourselves or around smart work. You know, if everybody dedicates more time understanding, hey, what am I doing? What are my responsibilities? How can I do this better? I think this is going to help the whole continent a lot. I mean, what is our role in this, let's say, as African university students? Like, I would also recommend depth over breadth. I mean, look at A2SV's model. So we learn one topic, we learn it very well in one semester, and then on the second semester, we study something else. In the classic education, you try to juggle maybe 5, 6, 7 balls. You try to learn many things at the same time. And this gives you breadth, but you don't get depth. So what I would recommend to, let's say, future technologists like you, like get deeper understanding of things, you know, put high quality standards. Like don't be okay with low quality. Try to produce something high quality, review it. Do not give your output immediately in front of users. Bake it. So that would be my advice. It was a little longer than your question, Samir, but I hope it helps. So Biruk's question is, what would be the future of each ideas that would be brought to this hackathon? Will we actually see them alive? Well, I mean, of course, we would love to see them all alive, Biruk. But realistically speaking, this is hard to expect that. But what is going to be the journey? So in the quarterfinals, we are going to have hundreds of projects. And for a little over 2 days, they are going to be competing in a remote hackathon, in a virtual hackathon. They will also have access to mentors. And by the end of these, let's say 2 days of hackathon, quarterfinals that will take place next weekend, we are going to choose the top 30 projects. And these top 30 projects are going to be the semifinalists. So for the next 6 weeks, those projects are going to meet advisors. They will continue being improved. And between November 11 to November 13, we are going to have the grand finale in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. So those 8 projects, like all the members of the team, they will fly to Ethiopia, stay in a nice hotel, and enjoy the finals. So that's the plan. And we will continue supporting these ideas, like the ones that are proceeding. We really want this to make a real impact. We don't want these ideas to go to garbage. Thank you. Yes, Yaret.
Okay, hi everyone. So I have 2 questions actually, and the first one is maybe it might be answered before, but I have seen a lot of people, like including me, we know the problem in Africa, especially in Ethiopia, for example, in agricultural sector or in construction, the ones we provided before. We know the problem and the root cause, but how can we know the way we can solve that using generative AI? Like I have figured out the problem. For example, I was trying to work on the agricultural sector, but I was trying to find a way to utilize generative AI, like to solve those problems. So how can I know the way to use generative AI to solve these problems? That's my first question.
So if you share your problems, it will be easier for us, Yaret. Like without knowing your problem, it's very hard to tell how to apply generative AI.
Yeah, so for example, in the agriculture sector, like in Ethiopia, around 85% of farmers, people are farmers, and those like large number of farmers couldn't satisfy the agricultural need of the 15% people, you can say, and the root cause might be like due to low infrastructure, like the people don't use advanced technologies to like farm a lot of land, so they do it with cows and oxes, so it's not efficient to grow a large amount of crops. So that's one problem. We can provide more tractors and stuff to the farmers. The other problem is like lack of knowledge about what type of crops are good to be grown on that environment, on that area, or during that time of the year. So we might give them information about that. So like we can address these 2 issues, but how can we use generative AI to solve that?
So one thing that comes to my mind here regarding this is, like, how about creating a chatbot where the farmers can speak with the chatbot in their native language and tell about their location, their physical circumstances, how big is their farm, how is the weather circumstances, and so on, like whatever variables are affecting it. And with the help of generative AI, getting suggestions regarding which crop that they should produce this year or like given circumstances in their location. So the generative AI can definitely help providing information in an easily consumable manner. And the second problem you mentioned, it's about educating farmers, right? Not them knowing what is going to be the best in their field. This is very important for them. And it is something I believe generative AI can help with. So to make it a complete system, that chatbot doesn't have to only be available through your mobile app or your website. Like we have seen examples in our core dev team, it is possible to connect these APIs to popular social media platforms like Telegram. So you can basically create a Telegram account where farmers can write a message. Hey, I'm having this farm in Dredava, and it's this large. I tried this corp in last 3 years. What should I do? If the farmer can write this in his native language to your system via Telegram, I think this is going to be a good upgrade. And what can be the next level? If you can also support this through SMS, because some farmers, I'm sure they don't have access to Telegram, but they may at least have a phone. They can at least send an SMS. And again, like I'm not saying go ahead and implement this project, but I'm just trying to give you an example how generative AI can help us build solutions in agriculture domain. So does that answer your question, Yared?
Right. Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you, Emre.
Do you have another
All right.
question?
My next question is not about only this hackathon, but generally, like when we use generative AI, how can we like make sure the ethical considerations are kept? For example, if we are building a generative, like integrating generative AI for the previous problem, the agricultural problem, we might have to personalize it, right? Training and personalizing the model is one part of it, like to personalize the ChatGPT to answer only like agricultural sector questions. So during that, like there might be bias and like things that might occur, like false information might be provided. So how can we make sure that these areas are addressed? This is my second question.
I think during the solution building, in the fine tuning and embedding phases, when you have these basically LLM based tools, basically you use like some existing model based probably from an operator like OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Entropy, or basically Google Vertex sort of provider. You have 2 or 3 approach here. One of them is basically you have prompt filter. You can ask about the prompt, whether it's related or not, before you submit the prompt to the model. So basically ChatGPT could first classify the question, whether it's related or in your criteria sort of thing. And the second thing is you can basically prompt the model to just answer only questions related with the topic, and give previously a set of rules about the ethicality and other sort of thing. That's a bit new and gray area, because I see that in Twitter or other places, people are cracking all sort of ethical things using basically role playing and other sort of things. But at the end of the day, you will still use ChatGPT to filter out or audit the ethicality of ChatGPT. And also the second thing is, once you have some sort of a feedback mechanism, you could basically tell what problem is unethical, and probably the model will be learning that as well. Yeah.
And like one thing I would like to remind here, as long as you do not introduce any new data, like you can see even on ChatGPT, right? It has a warning at the bottom. ChatGPT may produce inaccurate information about people, places, or facts. So like you can also add such kind of information like next to the output of your system or in the output window, so that people will understand that it's not like 100% source of truth. So like I would say, don't get discouraged by such kind of issues. Like try to make it work first. So such issues, they can be addressed in the future. Like if there is any personalized data that you are using, it can be anonymized. There are things that you can do to make things more ethical on your end. And like for the rest, as I said, this is not the time to worry. Like we are just at the beginning of this journey. If we get there, like we have a working system now, ethical questions are rising. I think this is a good problem to have.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Yared. So Biruk, I see a problem in the chat window from Biruk Mesfin. So most of the problems exist today are hardware based. So how can we solve them without any hardware help? Well, Biruk, like we do not claim that all the problems can be solved by generative AI. At the same time, I would disagree that most of the problems are due to hardware. I mean, I can understand, especially in agriculture, that because of tooling, there may be big inefficiencies. At the same time, there is also big efficiencies due to lack of information and education. So, like, I would recommend focusing on parts where you can solve the problem. We cannot renew the infrastructure in Africa. Like, it's not within our power for now. And like, we cannot buy new hardware for farmers, right? Again, it's not within our power at the moment. At the same time, there are things we can do. Like, we can build digital systems which can help potentially millions of Ethiopian farmers to learn more about what is best in their region and how to do the best farming for the goods that they are that they put on their field. So there are things we can do. So let's keep our focus on that part, and let's see what's going to come out. Are there any other questions, team? So in that case, Sinan abi, what are your conclusive remarks? So you have been a university student in the past. You know
Yes,
the pros and cons.
it's all
Yes.
exciting. I mean, really, really cool. When we were in university, unfortunately, things were mostly like being about good engineer, not like a good product-minded engineer. But software engineering is turning into more like a product engineering from now on to further. So these are all really, really exciting exercises. Hopefully, I mean, you will have at the end of the hackathon overall process good products which would be really successful, helpful, and contributed to quality of life of people. Yeah, hopefully. Thank you. Thank you all. for
Abi,
today.
thank you very much for your time and energy. So for people who may not know, currently we both are located in California, and our local time is about to be 3 a.m. So if our focus or energy was not at the highest level from time to time, please excuse us. But I hope this was a fun and informative session. Sinan abi, thank you very much again.
You're very welcome. Your time. Thank you.
All right, and let's quickly announce the next program as well. So team, after exactly 2 hours, we are going to have generative AI implementation workshop. I highly recommend everybody to join that one. Like our business intelligence team member Samet prepared a great workshop. We will be learning how to use OpenAI's APIs, Hugging Face APIs. Like we will generate text, we will generate image, speech, conversions in between. So it's again a fun and informative one. I think we are going to be sleeping, right, Sinan abi? It's getting late. But for our East Africa and Africa folks, please do enjoy. Do not miss the next session, which is going to start in 2 hours. Practical generative AI use for development. Thank you very much, team. See you.